I've started to see the way that this book is gonna come together. I was in awe of myself. I am simultaneously going crazy and having the time of my life writing the chapters that I'm currently writing.
That's cool. I did what I supposed to. There's nothing left for me to do. So now I'm poking out my head through.
Hi, welcome back to another writing vlog. I think my goal for this vlog is to finish part 2 of Local Heavens, my adult cyberpunk sci-fi book. By the time we hit the end of part 2, we will be at the halfway point. But I also think that I might already be at the halfway point. I really can't tell. I don't know if I'm halfway through this book already. I feel like I am. The draft is at 47,000 words, but the end of part 2 is kind of like the first climax. Because there's always a midpoint climax and then there's like a third act climax. Lots of things happening. The main character is going to be hit with some revelations, with some struggles, and that's going to be the major turning point for him. Currently writing truly one of my favorite chapters in the book so far, and that's why I'm in a good mood. I'm just gonna try to like focus on that. Crazy. Can we do it? I don't know.
The flowers at our feet grew towering stems that shot upwards the candied sky, as high as the trees. We laughed again and weighed nothing.
Okay, you guys, remember how I said in my last vlog that I was like working through a scene that I think will be one of my favorite scenes in the entire book? We're about to finish off this chapter and it's gonna be crazy. This is like a genuine turning point for the main character. I was writing the last paragraph of this chapter because I kind of write my chapters non-linearly, oh my god, which I have a video about. But yeah, so I was writing like the end of the chapter. I was tingling. I was like, oh my gosh. This feels very like cathartic for this character. Like writing that whole sequence is just, I'm feeling for this man right now. Okay, it's 3 p.m. right now. My goal is that before the end of today, I will basically have this chapter done. Okay, we wrote 1,300 words today. It is now almost 8 p.m. It was a long writing session. I managed to bang out 1,300 words today, which is quite a bit for me. That's like above average. And now chapter 14 is done. It has been a crazy past few days of writing. So much writing has been done. I just somehow, like, the Holy Spirit was moving through me. I'm super lazy, so this is gonna be my dinner. And then we're gonna update on my writing. I have been reading BABEL pretty much non-stop for the last few days. I usually don't read this fast. I think I've like literally, I tore through this. But yeah, genuinely, oh my god, I'm not even gonna, if I start talking about all the things that are just absolutely amazing about this book, this whole vlog is gonna be a BABEL vlog, and there's no time for that right now. It's such an incredible book. I think this is genuinely one of my all-time favorite books I've ever read, maybe ever. Definitely my favorite book of the last 5 years. Even with all of that hype, going into it and reading it for myself, I'm just absolutely floored. There are a lot of things that are incredibly impressive about this book, but I think the one thing that really struck me from like chapter 1 was thematic richness. The level of nuance, the complexity, the depth to which this book interrogates its theme. The world building is really rich. It's just such a seamless alternate history that it treads this really interesting line between what feels like historical fiction and speculative. Like, you know you're reading a speculative book, you know it's fantasy, but most of the time it doesn't feel like fantasy. It genuinely feels like historical fiction. I'm just like blown away. I can't, okay, I'm gonna stop talking about this book. Okay, also have pretty much made it to the end of part 2 of Local Heavens. Part 2 of this book has been such a roller coaster. Like, I started writing this act and I was like fully in a second act slump. It was some of my worst writing ever. I was writing the same 3 chapters for like a month. a month and a half. And within the last few days, I've written probably like 3 chapters all at once. So it's just like weird. The writing process is so weird. The end of this act is definitely going way better than the start of this act. I'm feeling kind of good about where the story is and all of that. And I added another chapter the end of this part. So originally I thought I only had 2 more chapters left to write. Now I have 3 more chapters left to write. But the progress is going pretty well. But yeah, just to speak about what I was writing for the last few days, I'm at the part of the book where the main character is finally like learning things. He's getting all these revelations. This is where the plot really starts to unravel, and once we start part 3, we are like fully in the rising action. Yeah, I think part 3 is going to be very, very fun to write, to just completely unravel this character. But yeah, I'm just so happy that I'm out of the second act slump, because it was so awful. Like, I truly was like, I'm on the verge of just, okay, I wasn't on the verge of quitting the book, but I was like, oh my god, maybe I need to shelve it for like a month. But thankfully I was able to power through it, and now I am feeling quite good about what I have produced in the last few days. The only other potential hiccup that I am considering at the moment, and I think I'll just have to have it beta read and then decide if it's still a problem, but there's a relationship in this book, one of the main character and then one of the side characters. I was debating whether or not I needed to like add in another chapter to basically like put onto the page development of their relationship, because the plot starts moving really fast once we're out of Act 1, and also the passage of time sort of like moves somewhat quickly. There are like spaces of like a week or 2 at a time between chapters, and the things that are happening in those few weeks, I don't always write them out, so I'll usually just like do kind of like a paragraph to indicate the passage of time and what has happened in that time. So there is that feeling of like time is moving, but because it's not happening on screen, I'm worried that if someone were to read it, they feel like there are things that are missing. So yeah, I think that I'm almost wondering if that comes down to a taste thing. Like, I think that there are some readers that like really want to see each individual thing happening on the page, but then I think there are also some readers that are like, some of this could be cut, you know? I think at the rate that I'm going, like, I am shocked with how much I've written in the space of 2 to 3 days. So I think we're making some pretty good progress, even because I tacked on a new chapter to the end of this part. I don't know if I'll get to the end of that chapter, but even if I like kind of get it started, I'll be happy with that. Here's a word count check. We are at almost 53k. The fact that we're at 53k, I think I really underestimated how much it would take to, or like how many words it would take to get to all of the narrative beats that I wanted to get to. That's why when I was originally planning out this story, I thought that it was going to be like a crisp 75,000 words, scenes that I don't need to write, or my descriptions, maybe they aren't efficient enough, and that's why the word count is so long. This writing style is very maximalist, I want to say, like way more than any of my other stories I've ever written. That's definitely part of the reason why when I start getting into a scene, the character voice just like takes over. And then I spend like 2 paragraphs just like talking about this main character and like how sad he feels. Like, I need to stop. I truly need to stop. I wrote a freaking flashback chapter yesterday. Yeah, this chapter ended up being 3,200 words, and I originally thought it was gonna be like 1,500 words. So that's how you know I'm just like completely unhinged. I have a feeling, because I've kind of been editing this chapter today, and I have a feeling that I calmed down a bit, and once I get a beta reader on this, I will force myself to cut out some words, because I think maybe I just got way too excited.
Waking up my brain, maybe you can do the same thing. You want me to say something, I come up with nothing. Maybe we can talk until we figure out.
Y'all, past few days of writing just been insane. I'll have a stretch of a couple good days of writing, like maybe a week, and I'll just be like really foggy headed because my brain is like so entrenched in my story. But I think this foggy headedness has lasted way longer than I thought, and I realized it's because I've gotten over that second act slump, and I'm now somewhat past the halfway points and kind of I hit like kind of the first major turning point of the book, and I'm right on the precipice of the rising action. Over the weekend, I basically re-outlined the ending. It's not that I changed what I wanted the ending to be, but my outline didn't account for the depth to which I wanted to explore certain ideas. I've been writing like 1,500 words, 2,000 words a day, and it's because it's like the floodgates have opened and I suddenly have all of these things I need to say in this book. I've also been kind of inspired to do more research on a few different things. I'm going to talk about that in a sec, because I recently went to a book event. I went to a panel with Kelley, and we went to go see R.F. Kuang and Vaishnavi Patel talking about academia and fiction, specifically talking about BABEL and Kaiki, their most recent books. And y'all, oh my god, when I tell you, like, I came out of this panel discussion utterly inspired. I was really inspired by the way that they were speaking about craft, the way they were speaking about their research process, all these insights that they have about how they engage with their research. It was always my plan to kind of just write the first draft and then really fill out the details of the world and the themes that I'm trying to hit a little bit better. I really just wanted to focus on my story and not worry so much about the research process yet. And the reason that I felt like I could kind of defer the research process a little bit is because I'm writing the future, and so it takes place in the quote-unquote real world, in the sense that it's like America, but it takes place far into the future. And so at that point, it almost felt like I was writing a secondary world, because it does take place so far in the future, and there is all this wacky technology that has changed society and all that kind of stuff. However, what I'm realizing is that I was really motivated to try to enrich this world right now in this first draft, and so I spent like a couple days digging into a few topics, which I'll talk about in a sec. I'm starting to see all of these interesting avenues in my story, and I'm also starting to see how, like, the depth to which I can touch upon certain things. And on top of that, I'm also starting to see the way that my main character is really going to unravel in this book, because I've talked a lot about how he's such a passive person, and that has presented some challenges, because I was always like, okay, what is the turning point going to be? How is it going to feel? Where is that like click for him? He's slowly being pushed towards being this very, like, really just kind of being filled with rage. But yeah, so that's kind of how I've been feeling over the past few days, and I'm currently one scene away from finishing part 2 of this book. And like I was saying, I had to re-outline the ending because I realized that in my original outline, a lot of the chapters that I thought were going to be only 1 chapter are now 2 chapters. And then there's also a frame story. And so in the last like act of the book, the story starts cutting more often to present day. So what I did is that now that I'm much further into the book, I have a lot more clarity on what the ending is going to look like. So I basically took my outline, and then I took my Scrivener file and laid out all the chapters to the end of the book. That was the first time that I had done that. My outline was really just like general jot notes on the direction of the ending. But once I got in there and really started thinking about, okay, this is what this individual chapter is, and I started adding in certain scenes and ideas, it really, like, I've started to see the way that this book is going to come together. I was in awe of myself. When this book is like out there one day, knock on wood, fingers crossed, that somehow the powers that be will allow this piece of work to be published, I kid you not, I almost had a bit of a cry. which is insane because we're not even done writing the book. And I think it was this moment of realizing that the story that I envisioned 3 years ago-ish, when I first came up with this idea, finally at a place as a writer where I can write it exactly the way that I wanted it to be. It was emotional because I was getting emotional over the characters' journeys, but also I was getting emotional over my journey as a writer and the fact that I'm able to like bring this story to life. Oh, the other thing is, when I went to meet up with Kelly, I had her actually read the blurb of this book. She basically read it and was like, I would pick this off the shelf. And I was like, really? Because I've never had anyone, no one else has insight into this work other than my brother, who brainstormed a lot of the ideas in the book with me. But she was kind of the first external person to have all of these like details about what the story is. Nice to get to speak to someone about the story because I have kept so much of it to myself, you know? Can you tell I'm in like such a state? Like, I don't often film when I'm in this state. All right, so a little end of day update. I got some writing in this morning and then I just did a little bit right now. Wrote quite a bit last night at literally 2 a.m. You guys, I was not tired at all. Like, my brain was going crazy. I am simultaneously going crazy and having the time of my life writing the chapters that I'm currently writing. And there's a scene that I want to write today. Like, I've kind of been putting it off for the last 2 days because it's crazy. It's scary, it's crazy. It's not like literally scary as in like scary things are happening, but it's unsettling. A sort of tangential theme in this book is actually parasocial relationships, and I don't think that this is the project that I'm going to like really go deeply into the parasociality of something that is currently happening in this book. But as I was like writing this scene, I realized like how crazy the theme of parasocial relationships could get in this story if I had the word count. Yeah, I don't know how deeply I will choose to tackle it, but I think it will be touched upon naturally because of the way that certain plot threads are coming together. The chapters that I'm currently writing at the moment is the main character and a side character. They have kind of been investigating something and they come to the realization that another character in the book has been doing something that's like very unnerving for a long time. Yeah, so with all of the changes that I've made to the outline, the book has ended up being split into 4 books. 4 parts, I should say. I originally thought it was going to be like 3. I always feel like I need that 4th part, that last part, as just like its own separate thing, its own, like, I like to kind of have the denouement be separate from the climax, you know? It's just kind of this like mental thing, but we'll see. Word count is continuing to be a struggle. It's trending towards a 100k manuscript, which is fine. I would rather overwrite it. What I will say is that I feel like I've been genuinely having the time of my life writing this main character and just absolutely corrupting him, like his spirit, his soul. I was reading over a scene that I wrote yesterday and I was like squealing because I was like, I can't believe I wrote that. I also started doing some historical research. I was specifically diving into some research about history of like labor movements and class struggles in the US specifically. Cyberpunk, I think, is inherently anti-capitalist. I think there's obviously a spectrum in terms of how deeply you want to convey that anti-capitalist message. Like, if you're writing a cyberpunk story that's really just focused on like the technology spectacle of things, and then other times you will have stories that much more fiercely critique corporations, for example, corporate greed, class warfare, and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, because cyberpunk is a dystopian, and it is a dystopian as a result of a widening class gap, and technology being like a forefront driver of that destruction. There is a very natural anti-capitalist message in the cyberpunk genre. My goal with this book was always to go deep in portraying that level of destruction that comes as a result of a truly like merciless, profit-driven world. So yeah, reading about like socialist history, and I feel like there's a lot that I can still learn and that I can still utilize in this narrative. Anyways, I have a lot of ideas that I want to put into the book. I don't know if all of them can fit into this book, unless it turns out to be 120,000 words. I'm going to try to finish up that crazy scene, and then we'll be in part 3. We have finished part 2. I'm so tired. A few days ago when I was vlogging and when I was like finishing up the act, I had so much energy and I was really like racing towards the end, and I'm glad about that. But now that I've kind of like had a couple days to start part 3 of the book, I realized how much writing I've actually done in the last like week or two, and I think I'm getting a little creatively and spiritually drained. Yeah, I'm not writing at the same like pace that I was writing it for the last 2 weeks, and I'm okay with that. I feel like my brain is starting to overheat. I finished part 2, which is crazy. That was kind of my goal for this vlog. Still kind of ironing out some scenes, and I'm still tinkering with like the last couple chapters, because this is like a really, I didn't anticipate how tricky the internal character beats would be at the end of this act, the way that the characters, all the character relationships are like unfolding at this point in the book. So I'm not 100% confident that I've been able to nail everything in the way that I want them to, but I am happy that I got through this stretch of the book. I am really excited to write the next part. It's gonna be crazy. I'm so tired. Like, it's so funny contrasting like how I feel about my writing today versus how I felt about it in those previous clips where I was like bouncing off the walls because I was so excited. I'm gonna try to tackle the first chapter of part 3 tomorrow. I'm gonna finish editing this scene that I'm currently writing, but after that I'm gonna stop working for today.
Falling to pieces in my room. Are you coming over?
I'm sitting on the floor today. I don't care. I feel like I genuinely keep forgetting to vlog. Like I mentioned previously, I finished part 2. After I finished part 2, I went pretty much immediately into writing part 3. I usually like take the time to do like a quick line edit, I read over the entire act, but I feel like I had a lot of momentum, so I just went straight into part 3. I'm currently writing the 3rd chapter of part 3, and then I have decided that I'm going to send the first like 4 chapters to Lynn and Kelley. I don't usually do this. I don't usually send my work to be beta read until I'm done the first draft, but with this draft I've just been like really immersed in it, and I'm really confident with the ideas, and I think it will be really beneficial to get someone who really has no context about the project. With like Lynn and Kelley, I mean, they don't really have any context about the project other than the premise, and I think it will be really interesting to see if any of my ideas will make sense to them. Some of the aspects of the world building is like a little bizarre, and I don't know how good of a job I did in terms of explaining it and contextualizing it. So yeah, that is what my plan is for the next few weeks, I guess. Last night I actually decided to write the prologue of the book, and I was going to originally write the prologue at the end, but because I'm sending these early chapters for a beta read, I kind of felt like it would be nice to have at least a rough prologue, because I think that prologue is an important establishing tone for where this character and this story is going to end up. Yeah, I'm really excited about the progress that I've made with this project. I'm very proud of it so far. The book is in a good place for now. The prologue's been written. The draft is basically at 70,000 words. It's gonna be long. I think this is gonna be a 100K manuscript, and that is if I stay on track, control myself, but it is gonna be a long first draft. Yeah, I guess just a update on how I foresee my content going for the foreseeable future. I really want to focus on my writing. I feel like if there is something that has to be sacrificed, it will have to be YouTube, and that's just a sort of decision that I want to make for my well-being. You know, starting the YouTube journey and being able to interact with so many writers, but social media is very draining, and I wasn't built for this. I will not be gone. I do have some content I want to put out. I also have some brand obligations this year, so I will be doing those. You will be seeing me still, but I don't think I'll be doing like a regular weekly upload schedule like I used to last year. I need to take care of myself a bit, and social media is not real, and I need to finish writing this book. That's it. I'll still be around if you want to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, read Storygraph, which I haven't updated. I haven't updated my reading online in a very long time, even though I have been reading, but that's where I'll be in the meantime. Yeah, that's the end of this vlog. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys soon. I hope all of your writing projects are going well.
You want me to say something, I come up with nothing. Maybe